Hi everybody. Okay, I'm going to try it this way. This video is for Wednesday night, May 6th class, and apparently Facebook is not working correctly. So I am going to make the video here. I started it and the audio wasn't working for anybody. So I'm hoping this is going to work okay. My nose always itches when I get on here. So, okay, I am going to start with some things I want to tell you about firing your kiln to bisque. So let me move this out of the way and lay it up here. Now, I fired 2 loads of bisque, 2 bisque this last week, and I used 2 different kilns. Let me get these cones down here. I used 2 different kilns. I'm just going to hold the cones up. It'll be easier, I think. I used both of the kilns I used were older ones. They were both even heat. One was a TNB 1413, and these are the cones from that one. Now, everything I had in the kiln is poured out of newer Bell porcelain that was made in the last, 6 months probably. And what I've noticed for the last year is that Bell porcelain cannot fire near as hot as what it used to. And I do know it's not just Bell that is having this problem. I've heard it from some other companies also, that it just doesn't fire the same as it did. It is overfiring much easier. It's getting little blisters on it, very tiny, minute blisters. It's taken me a lot of trial and error, but I have turned my kilns down. I've set the kiln setter to where they shut off sooner. This is kind of dumb, okay? I'm going to put it back up on here on me until I do this. So I have adjusted the kiln setter to where the cone will bend sooner. And I've changed the coils in both kilns so the coils are hotter. So I am actually firing faster than what I used to. So it's not in the kiln as long. I'm firing faster. The one kiln is taking about 4.5 hours to fire to bisque. The other one is taking about 5 hours to fire to bisque. Now these are the cones from, okay, let me show you. This is from the TNB. That is the 5. You can definitely see the 5 is overfired. Okay, the 6 only bends, this is the one I'm trying to show you close up here. The 6, the witness cone 6 is only going to about 1 o'clock, which with older porcelain, this would have been an underfire. It probably would have mildewed on you when you went to apply the China paint later. It would not have worked well. The 7, as you can see, really didn't do a thing, which is basically kind of what the 7's supposed to do. It shouldn't do much or slightly bend. But what I was always taught was that my 6, my witness cone 6, your 5 should underfire, your 7 should overfire. Wait a minute, let me get that straight. The 5 should overfire, the 7 should underfire, the 6 should bend to between 3 and 6 o'clock. Well, I'm finding that is not the case for me. With the porcelain that I am using, I want between 1 and 2 o'clock in order to get a perfect fire. If I go all the way to 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, I'm overfired. And if I go all the way to 6 o'clock, I've really got pimples and blisters. So, but the porcelain that I have, which is some of the latest batches, is firing beautifully at between 1 and 2 o'clock. Like this Lillian head is one of them. This head doesn't have a flaw on it. It is not well, I won't say it doesn't have a flaw on it. I cracked this, but I did that. And I know exactly what I did that I cracked it. But there's no flaws in this face. There's no blisters, no anything. It has a really good glow. This will paint up beautifully. There's nothing wrong with this bisque fired to this temperature, to only about a 1 to 2 o'clock for a cone 6. My second kiln, that had my Lady Grace head in it and my large FG head that I've cut the eyes out of and soft fired and cleaned, was in that kiln yesterday. And that's what I just put the wash on today in those videos that I stuck up on the group. Those heads came out beautiful also, and the exact same thing. You know, the 5 is a little bit more fired than it was in the first kiln. There's my 6 compared to the 6 of the first kiln. First kiln actually fired just a little bit more than what this one did. This one's definitely a 1 o'clock. This one's maybe a 1:30 to 2 o'clock. And 7, of course, didn't do much of anything. But the 2 heads there fired beautifully. They polished beautifully. Not a blister on them. So I have found that the secret to firing the newer porcelain that I have in stock right here that I'm using out of can only fire to between 1 to 2 o'clock. So I wanted to make sure you understood that. And, you know, if you buy any greenware from me at any point in time, it can only fire to between 1 and 2 o'clock. Now, I did have, there was one head in there. It was the large FG head. That head was from about 10 years ago, so it was much older porcelain. And I think it's going to be all right on me. I think it will be okay. It might be just a hair underfired. It's not fired as totally as the Lady Grace is, but the wash applied really good today. As long as it paints when I go to do it and I don't get any black mildew spots, it is fired fully enough. But it could have used a little bit higher temperature, but it was poured out of slip that was like 10 years old. So, okay. If you have any questions on bisque firing, then put that in the comments of this video after I upload it into the group. Okay, so that's it on cones then. I'm going to set them off to the side. Okay, the next thing I want to go over with you is what I call reading the picture. Okay, now I've got to get this back some so I've got more room to work here. When I go to paint, hold on, need a drink. With the way the camera works, I probably need something more than water. Okay, when I go to paint, I will usually take, you know, in the, I can never think of what it's called, units on the group. I've put up a bunch of technique sheets in there, and I actually have some more that I'm going to put up there. You can take, and what I do is print the picture off that I want to copy. I do it in black and white. I don't need to waste the color ink for what I want to do. So I'm going to print it off in black and white. I've printed off the Lady Grace head. I've printed off the, I think this was Eugenie from Virginia Livornia. And then this was the FG lady from Virginia Livornia. So I've printed a black and white copy of each one of these technique sheets. Now, I got to figure out what I did with it. I need my ruler, and I need a pencil. Here's my pencil. Okay, so in order to be able to paint easily from this picture, I really need to understand the picture. I need to be able to look at it, and I call it reading the picture. I need to be able to gather the information from this picture and be able to apply it onto the face. So the very first thing I'm going to do is move my computer back farther because I still don't have enough room. Okay, hold on. I also have sand down here that's driving me crazy. Came out of the inside of the heads. I can feel it underneath this piece of paper. There we go. Okay, first thing I want to do is draw a line straight down at the corner of the eye. So I'm going to draw a line with a pencil like so. Maybe I need to do it with a pen though so you can see it better. Hold on. Let me see if this shows up better. The pencil, my ink was pretty dark, so the pencil's not showing up real good. So we'll go to pen. Okay, that will show up better for you that you can see it. Okay, so I want a line at the inside and the outside corners of the eyes, straight down the face. Okay, now do the other side. Okay, so I've got those two lines down there, you know, two on each side of the face. Now I want to make a line at the end of, okay, let me show you here. I'll do a couple lines at a time. What these two lines are telling me is that when I go to paint this eyebrow, my eyebrow is going to extend in towards the nose a little bit from the corner of the eye. When I go to paint my shadow brow and I'm going, you know, towards the ear, right here is the corner of my eye. If I go straight up, about that much of my eyebrow is past the corner of that eye. Over here, about the same thing. This one's a little bit longer than that side. You're also going to find out how unequal your heads are as far as the eyes and the eyebrows and all of that stuff is not always painted right on. The sculpting is not always right on. So on antique ones, you're going to find a lot of variation here. But if you have a picture of the antique doll that your actual mold was taken from, this gives you a really good idea of the spacing of everything. If it's not the exact same mold, you know, if that mold wasn't made from that picture, you've got an idea of what it looks like, but it's not going to be identical. So on this side, it's telling me my shadow brow extends in. We'll find that out with the next line. But if I draw a line down from the tip of these two brows, they're going to line up pretty good with the nostril. But right now it's telling me I'm going in about that far past the corner of the eye. And out here I'm extending about that far out from the corner of the eye. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to make the line that goes straight down from the end of the eyebrow, which would be about right there. And same thing over here. Here's the end of the eyebrow. So there's that one. And they're pretty close to lining up with the nostrils. So your shadow brow actually is going to come almost out and even with the nostril. Same thing here. It's almost out there even with the nostril. Okay, then I want to draw a line through the eyes. And they're pretty level. The 4 points line up pretty good. So that just tells me that part is, you know, pretty right on. Okay. Then down here, I want to see where the peaks. Okay, you know, on your mouth, you've got your little, whatever they call that. Is it Cupid's bow or something like that? It's called. The very top point of my peak, I want to see where that lines up with my nose. So the very center of my peak is going to line up with the nostril. This one is going to be a little bit farther off because it's off to the side of the nostril just a little bit. So right there is like the highest point of the peak. And so it's actually to the inside of the nostril. So if I paint this mouth to match the one that was on the original antique, this peak will be just a little bit to the inside of that nostril. Okay, then I also want to notice here my lip accents. If you notice, if I draw across the bottom of my lip accents, the bottom of the actual lip is clear down here. Well, not clear down here. It's just a little bit off. But you can see that your lip accents are raised up a little bit on the lower lip. You don't actually paint your lower lip and your lip accents all the way down to the edge of the molding, because the edge of the molding is actually down here. It's actually right there. So I'm stopping a little bit short of that. Okay, then I want to know where the corners of my mouth come out to, which is going to be right there and right there. So now these are not going to line up the same. This corner is coming out about right there on the eye, where this corner is right at the tear duct. So I can compare those lines and see where all I'm going. Now, when I go to paint eyelashes, the very first eyelash, if I draw that all the way out to get the slant of my eyelashes, it's going to be right in the center of the cheek. If I go over about 5 eyelashes, I'm right there. If I go over about another 5 eyelashes, I'm right there. If I go to about here, I'm right there. If I jump up to here, if I extended those lashes out, I'm right there. And then as I get to here, I'm right there. And then when I get to this corner, I'm about right there. So I'm almost straight out by the time I get to the corner. But that tells me the slant of these eyelashes, that the very first one, I want to end up right here on the cheek. I want it to be pointing to right there on the cheek. If I go out about 5 eyelashes, I want it to be right there. Then the next one, I want it to be right there. You know, I want to eventually end up out here almost straight across. Now let's do the uppers. So from the upper one, want it to go this way. Then I'm going to go in about 3 or 4. That's slanting that direction. Then like that. The upper ones are much more slanted than the lower ones are. Okay. Can you see the lines for that? You can see how they slant much more than the bottom ones do. Okay, let's go ahead and do the other set of eyelashes. So I'm going to start with that very first one, because that's the important one. You need to know where your first eyelash points to on your cheek in order to get the slant started correctly to end up correctly. I hope that's making sense for everybody, that this just makes it easier to figure out where you need to be with your slant. Okay, then I'm going to do the upper ones here. Okay, these have a little bit of a curve to them, so I'm just kind of going by where the end points. Okay. So I know this looks like a mess, but take my word for it. If you sit down and you really study the picture and then compare it to your head and go back and forth between your head and the picture, it will help you with the placement of where things go. Okay, so that's the Lady Grace. Right on here, Lady Grace. I will try and take these downstairs. I don't know if they'll scan okay, but I will try and scan them into the classroom and put them in the units. So you've got these 3 pictures to look at. Okay, so I'm just very quickly, instead of standing here telling you what I'm doing with each one, I'm going to go ahead and draw this off just so these 3 pictures are done. So I'm doing the corner of each eye. Okay, then I'm doing where the nostril lines up. Okay, then this will give you an idea on, notice on this one, when you get to the FG, notice how close in this one, well, I'm actually going to draw it on there. This line actually lines up with that one, and it really does line up with the nostril. This one, my first line might have been a little crooked, otherwise it might have matched up. Am I straight? Am I crooked? Pretty close. The tips of these shadow brows, there is like a very light shadow brow underneath there. This original first hair is going to extend out a little bit farther than the shadow brow. So the shadow brow will probably stop about right here. But my eyebrow hair is going to come all the way out to here. This eyebrow hair lines up with this nostril, and it lines up with the peak of the mouth. This one lines up here. It's off just a little bit of the nostril, and it's not lining up with the peak at the top of the mouth. It's off to the right a little bit. But that still gives me a good idea where I'm at, because these eyebrows go in close to the nose, really close. Okay, then let's do a couple of eyelashes here. Very first one comes out there, and that one's about right there. Now these are going to turn the corner a lot faster than the Lady Grace ones did. See, by the time you're here, you're already almost straight out. This one on the corner is totally straight. Okay, let's do these lower ones right there. Right there. Do this one up here. And that one. Then let me do a couple on the top here. So the very first one right here should point to about right there. Then again, these are turning pretty fast. Okay, then let me get this side, and then this picture will be done. Whoops, I missed. Ignore that spot right there. Okay, but even though this just looks like a bunch of lines, if you really sit down and start studying it, it will help you immensely when you go to do the placement of your eyelashes and eyebrows and mouth and the accent lines and all of that. Okay, one last one to do here, because this one actually matches up with the head. I'm going to do the shadow brow on here first. So I'm going to start one. Okay, now this one isn't going to, truthfully, this one isn't going to work as well because it's not a straight on shot. This technique sheet, she's kind of looking to the side. So the most important thing that I need right now is when I go to do my shadow brow on this head, I need to know where this eyebrow's ending. And a little bit of this has something to do with the way it's turned, I think. So it's hard to tell. And then here I can see my peaks almost line up with my nostrils. Let's go ahead and put these two lines in. But like I say, this one won't be as easy to do because the head's turned sideways. But this gives me an idea when I go to do my shadow brow. Okay, which is what I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to lay this picture here where I can see it. And I'm going to work on the Lillian. This is actually the Eugenie technique sheet, but this is basically almost the exact same head. You know, this mold was definitely not made from this doll, but it's extremely close. I can use this one to paint from. Yeah, this is the S325 Lillian, and this is, I don't remember the number. I think it might be VL13 Eugenie, but they're both like a portrait Jameau. So they're going to be very close. Okay, so now I mixed up, just before class started, I mixed up Virginia Livornia's French Brow. I happen to have that laying here, so that's what I decided to use. I got to figure out where my crack in my table is here so I don't end up spilling the water. I need a cup of water. I need my Sealy's medium area brush. This is what I use for a shadow brow. I use an old Sealy's medium square shader. These are no longer, let's see if I can get this back here a little bit. These are no longer available in the Sealy. So you need kind of a floppy square shader. I need this to sweep over my eyebrow, which I'll show you here in a second. And then I need a small square shader that I can use to clean up the edges. So just a small square shader. Okay. So I'm going to show you a shadow brow tonight. Now this one, I'm looking at my picture. I want my shadow brow to extend almost even. Okay, this shadow brow right here, if I turn it around to match the picture, I want this one to extend just out from the nostril. This shadow brow, like I said, this picture is hard to tell. I'm going to line it up with this one. I know these brows end up into the nose pinched quite a bit. There's not much space in between there. So like I say, since this picture's turned sideways, it's great to see the hairs, but it doesn't give me the total placement there because the head's cockeyed. So, okay, first thing I want to do is I need a clean Super Doll sponge. I'm going to apply a thin coat of medium to the eyebrow area. Now, I cannot put an eyebrow on without having a very thin coat of medium. Make sure you don't have too much. You don't want puddles. Just a very thin coat applied across there. If I go to take the shadow brow off, I have to reapply that medium. I cannot put my shadow brow on without medium. It will not blend. It will not flow. So make sure you've got medium on there. And like I say, if I have to take that off, I've got to reapply my medium. Okay, let me find, I need my Optivisor to see what I'm doing. So I got to get rid of the glasses, get the Optivisor on. Now I want my medium area brush. I'm going to rinse it out with water because I'm not sure what color I used last. I have my lint-free towel in my lap. I'm not wiping on my shirt or my pants. And then I'm going to put some medium on my brush. And then I'm going to start streaking the paint across the tile. So I know that this paint flows smoothly. My brush is loaded evenly. And that things blend really smooth. Can you see how that paint just flows? I don't have too much on the brush. I have enough on the brush. It is flowing very well. Okay, so looking at my picture, I'm going to put a dot where I want the shadow brow to start. So I want it, the way this lines up is almost right over, I don't know if you can see my dot or not, but the dot is almost right over the nostril. Okay, this one is, this head's a little bit more even, I think. I want this one right over the nostril also. So I'm just going to put two tiny little dots there. I'm going to make them darker than what I normally would just so you guys can see them. Okay, now I want to, this one has a pretty distinct brow bone. I can see my brow bone pretty good. So I'm going to take and make little dots right across my brow bone. And I'm looking at my picture and my brow bone, you know, I'm going to have a little bit of a tail here on my shadow brow. I think as far as I want to take my dot is right out here to the outside corner of the eye. Like so. Okay, then I want to match this side up. So I want this one to go here, and here, and here. So right now, I'm just kind of following the dots. I'm trying to make sure they're right directly on that brow bone. This Lillian head has got some paint on there I don't want. Take it off with that. Must have black on my fingers. Hold on. Got to remove this. And I've got some black from somewhere. Not quite sure where I got it. Actually, that kind of looks like a sliver. No wonder my finger hurts. Okay. So now I'm going to connect the dots. I'm not reloading the paint because I don't want much paint on here. So I'm going to see if I can get the glasses here where I can see. I'm going to very carefully, very smoothly, little short strokes, I'm going to connect my dots. So I look something like that. Okay, now I need to match up the other one. So I'm still going down, connecting my dots, but very little paint on my brush. You'll notice they're very faint. Okay, now here is where the medium square shader comes in. I am going to, now this is a dry brush. It has nothing on it. There's no water, no paint. It's just a plain, dry, medium square shader that's kind of floppy. And I can take and run this across my shadow brow, and it will smooth the paint out completely. If you have the right amount of paint on your shadow brow, it will blend really easy for you. I'm picking up any of the lint that might be flying around up here, and I always have a lot of lint. I've got a fan going over here. I ran the China paint kiln this afternoon. Hold on, I got some sand inside the head that needs to come out. It's hot up here since I ran the China paint kiln today. Okay, so I have smoothed them out. Now I want to shape them. So that's where the square shader comes in. So I want to taper this edge just a little bit. I want to pull it down. And then I'm just running the brush along the edge here to get the right thickness that I want. All I want for this shadow brow is just a very thin, faint line that my eyebrow hairs will go over, but it will give me, got a little bit too much medium right there. I'm going to wipe off. It's like a little puddle up there. All I need is a very faint line, very thin. Something that I can place my eyebrow hairs on. All I'm looking for right now is just a faint guideline. Okay, you can see I've shaped the one, but I haven't shaped the other one yet. So now I'm going to take my brush, and I want to narrow this out. It's too wide. So by running this brush along the bottom, I can thin it out, and then I can wiggle it around like this, and that will erase the paint and it will smooth that edge out for me. Okay, still trying to get just a really thin, fine point. So I'm actually going to draw it out a little bit to get my fine point, and then I'm going to take off the end. Okay, I'm going to pull it back just a little bit because my hair will extend out there. When I put the end hair on, that will extend a little bit farther. So I don't want this shadow brow to go too far. Okay, now I need to smooth out this edge right here. It's too thick. So all I'm doing is running this brush along it. As long as I have that medium on there, I can move this paint wherever I want it to move to. Okay, it's hanging down. Got a piece of fuzz there. Let me get that off. It's hanging down a little bit too far right here. It's too low, so I'm actually going to raise it up a little bit. There, that helped some. I'm going to sweep back over it again. Now I think right in here, I'm a little bit too low on the brow bone. I like where the other one is placed better. So I'm going to run this brush underneath. Peel it off from the bottom. So I'm moving it up just a little bit, and then add just a little bit of paint to it to the top. And then that just moved my eyebrow up without having to remove it. And start over. Okay, just remember I want really, really thin because you barely want this shadow brow to show from under the eyebrow hairs. Okay, let me move this down just a little bit right here. Okay, I think that will work. So there's my first coat on the shadow brow on this head. I just need to get something on there that's a guideline for when I start doing these eyebrow hairs. Can you see that faint shadow brow underneath? And it's very thin. You don't want anything too thick. Okay. Nope, I just noticed this head does have a pinhole in the cheek. Oh well. She also has a crack back here, so she'll work fine to demonstrate on. Okay. I know there's the glare. I'll take a picture of this after it's fired so you can see the shadow brow after it's fired before I go to the next step. So, okay. That is it. That's all I was going to do tonight. Let me find my glasses. Was go over the cones, go over the drawing on the pictures, and get the shadow brow on. So, okay. So if anybody has any questions on any of these parts, then make sure to leave the questions below this video when I post it in the group, in the comments. So now by next week, I hope to have this thing figured out to where I can go for a live class that it actually works. So we will figure something out by next week. So, okay, that is it for tonight. Thanks, guys. See you soon. This will be posted in the group shortly. Good night.